There's a file they never let you read. It's not locked in a vault. It's buried in silence. A silence shared by therapists, professors, and every man who's learned this the hard way. You were told women seek kindness, that what they crave is empathy, support, and shared values. But then you watched her, the feminist with a degree in gender theory, spiral into obsession over a man who mocked everything she stood for. You watched the kind ones get ghosted, the honest ones left unread, and the cruel ones called at midnight. What you're about to hear isn't new. It was documented nearly a century ago, then buried under layers of social comfort. A disturbing truth that begins with a woman who should have known better, and a man who understood her better than she understood herself. Her name was Dr. Evelyn Marks. Harvard-educated, feminist scholar, wrote a thesis titled Consent and Power in Postmodern Relationships. In lectures, she deconstructed toxic masculinity. In private, she unraveled in its arms. His name isn't public. All we know is that he was the opposite of her type. In theory, unapologetically dominant, emotionally distant, unimpressed by her titles. When she spoke of empowerment, he smirked. When she cried, he turned away. And the more he pulled back, the deeper she sank into obsession. Her friends were horrified, her students confused, but the affair lasted 14 months. And after it ended, she vanished from academia. No paper, no explanation. It wasn't the first time, and it wouldn't be the last. In 1936, Dr. Lorenzo Fenzi, a little-known Italian psychiatrist working under Mussolini's regime, conducted an illegal experiment, one that would be banned today. He gathered 120 women from various social backgrounds. They were told it was a vocal memory test, but the real objective, to measure involuntary arousal in response to tone, not content. Each woman was read identical neutral sentences by 3 male speakers, a soft-spoken, emotionally validating voice, a confident, indifferent tone, cold but charismatic, a dominant, dismissive voice that interrupted, corrected, even mocked, heart rate, pupil dilation, skin conductivity, all were secretly monitored. And the result? The third voice, the mocking, dominant one, triggered the highest physiological arousal in over 70% of participants, even among women who identified as progressive, independent, or anti-authoritarian. It didn't matter what the words were, only how they were delivered and what they implied. A threat to the ego, a challenge to the self, a trigger rooted in something far deeper than politics or personality. Fenzi never published the results in a journal. He shared them in a private letter to a Viennese colleague. That letter was discovered in 1994, and then, quietly, disappeared again, because it didn't just suggest something controversial. It suggested something uncomfortable, that many women are not aroused by agreement, but by opposition, by the man who doesn't validate them, but confronts them. So why? Why would the modern woman, educated, empowered, still chase the man who disrespects her? What awakens beneath the surface when her beliefs are violated by someone she can't resist? And more importantly, what does it say about you if you've only ever offered safety and received silence in return? Freud didn't believe in safe love. To him, desire was never clean. It didn't arise from morality. It emerged from chaos, from unresolved tension between the id and the superego, between what we want and what we're told to want. And in women, he believed this conflict was magnified. Where they love, they do not desire, and where they desire, they do not love. Freud, 1912. It's not a moral flaw, it's a split, one encoded in the female psyche from early childhood. See, the young girl's first emotional attachments are usually tied to figures of power: her father, her older brother, her male teachers. These men are unreachable, unyielding, often emotionally reserved. The love she learns is filled with distance. Validation becomes rare, approval becomes a prize, and rejection, a trigger, not of avoidance, but of obsession. This is where Freud introduced the concept of thanatos, the death drive, a subconscious pull toward self-destruction, chaos, ego death. In male psychology, thanatos manifests in violence, war, addiction. In female psychology, it often takes a different form: desire for the dangerous man. Not just physically, psychologically, the man who is not impressed by her intelligence, the man who interrupts her performance of control, the man who, without lifting a finger, threatens the fragile identity she's spent decades constructing. To the conscious mind, he is the enemy. To the unconscious, he is the portal, the place where her ego breaks, where her inner child re-emerges, where submission doesn't feel like weakness, it feels like truth. Alfred Kinsey, the American sexologist who shattered mid-20th century sexual taboos, found something disturbing in his interviews. Many women report their strongest arousal during experiences of emotional risk. Not love, not safety, risk. He noted that during fantasy disclosures, a significant percentage of women described scenarios where power was taken, not given. Not because they wanted to be hurt, but because being overpowered meant they were no longer responsible, no longer the achiever, no longer the adult, just a vessel for raw feeling. And that is the key. When a woman says, "I know he's wrong for me, but I can't stop thinking about him," she isn't confused. She's in conflict. A conflict between the superego, the socialized self, and the id, the primal self. She wants the man who respects her mind, but she aches for the man who dismantles it. This isn't pathology, it's programming. Because for thousands of years, emotional unpredictability signaled genetic strength. Dominance meant protection. Indifference meant abundance. The male who didn't need to please was the male who could afford not to. And the female brain adapted. Even today, in classrooms and corporate offices, the pattern continues. How many women chase the approval of the emotionally unavailable man? How many cry over someone who never raised his voice, but always withheld his soul? What she says she wants is often a mask for what her nervous system remembers. And every time you lead with understanding, reassurance, and self-sacrifice, you may be offering her what she thinks she wants, but you are starving what she feels she needs. Now we turn the mirror, not to her, to you. You were taught that love is earned through kindness, that being a good man, attentive, respectful, emotionally present, would make you deserving. So you listened, you softened your edges, you swallowed your urges, you became emotionally available, transparent, safe, and what did it earn you? A thank you text, a polite goodbye, a front row seat to her new obsession with a man who never once said, "I just want to understand you." And you felt it, that sick pull in your stomach. If I had treated her worse, would she have wanted me more? That thought, the one you're ashamed of, is not wrong, it's just dangerous, because it's not about being cruel, it's about being unpredictable. See, when you become a mirror for her ego, she feels safe, but unseen. When you become a challenge to her ego, she feels unsafe, but alive. And in modern relationships, aliveness often wins. This is why the nice guy is friend-zoned. Not because he's unattractive, because he's transparent. He makes her feel like she's already seen the whole map. No mystery, no threat, no potential transformation, but the man who defies her expectations, who doesn't rush to reassure, who sets boundaries without explanation. That man becomes an emotional riddle, and riddles haunt the female mind. When she says, "He's just not my type," what she often means is, "He doesn't fracture me. He doesn't destabilize the identity she's subconsciously trying to shed. He doesn't mirror the chaos that once defined love in her early nervous system. He doesn't activate her trauma or give her a path to transcend it." And the men she runs to, they don't even know they're doing it. They just don't play by the rules. And because of that, they feel real. So where does that leave you? Not in bitterness, not in performative cruelty, but in awareness. You are not rejected because you are bad. You are rejected because you are predictable. And in a culture that anesthetizes women with safety, her nervous system will chase the man who can shatter the glass from the inside. But here's the final truth. You don't need to become cruel. You need to become whole. To stop performing the good man mask and start embracing the full spectrum of your masculine psyche. Firm, silent, playful, unapologetic. Not to hurt her, to awaken her. Because the real paradox is this. She craves the man she claims to hate, but she loves the man she never saw coming. What if you stopped asking how to be chosen and started becoming the man she can't decode?